Welcome back to the Idiots Football Show. I'm idiot number 1, Ballo. I got idiot number 2 on my right.
How we doing, boys? Great to be back.
And idiot number 3 on my left.
Dude, the Ravens, man.
And
Ravens.
And it's time to get right into the show. So first, we're going to start off with the Eagles versus Jacksonville. It was a very entertaining game. It was actually pretty decently close for a good period of the game. Jacksonville had me scared early in the beginning. When they got that quick 14-0 lead. But to Philadelphia, that ain't a thing. They came back with 20 unanswered points and ended up being able to win the game 29-21. Now, in this rainy game caused by Hurricane Ian, they played an absolutely phenomenal game. They made Trevor Lawrence not be able to handle the ball, have a terrible pocket presence. Literally, I could have hit him with a piece of paper and he would have fumbled the ball. It was so
Really?
bad. It was terrible. But, for me, I was enjoying it. I had a great time. The Eagles' defense did exactly what they were supposed to do today. They rallied to the ball. They got on top of it. They shut down Christian Kirk for almost the entire game. For a guy that had 9 targets and only 2 receptions, I'll take that for a guy who's been a top 5 receiver statistically so far this year. But you know what? To be 4-0 and to be where the Eagles are, to have this swagger, it feels good. They're playing well and everything is kind of working for them. You really got to see the run game this week. We leaned a little bit off of the pass attack and really went heavy with the run. We saw Miles Sanders look like the Miles Sanders of old, look like the backup to Saquon Barkley like he once was, and he was able to rush for over 120 yards with 2 touches. Now that's something I haven't seen since we got Miles Sanders, I think back in 2019 when we drafted him in the 2nd round. So, I'm pretty excited to see that kind of production out of a back that, clearly is the bell cow back, and especially when guys like Boston Scott, like last week, gets hurt, he's clearly going to have to pick up that slack. I'm just excited about the Eagles. I think they got a lot to offer, and I don't know if you guys got anything to say, but I really did enjoy getting to watch that show. I thought it was phenomenal.
No, I did see a bit of the highlights, and I was actually impressed with Trevor Lawrence because I'm one of the biggest Trevor Lawrence haters out there. I hated the fact that he went as high as he did. I hated the fact that, I watched him a lot at Clemson. I thought he was really kind of an average quarterback. I said, okay, he can run a lot. His throwing's, pretty good, but it's college again. And I didn't really think he excelled in any part of the game. I thought he was a complete quarterback, but that he didn't really excel. And I think we saw Urban Meyer hold him back a lot in his rookie year. He was held back by Urban Meyer,
Well, it was very clear that Urban Meyer was much more interested in other things.
In himself. More so than the Jags. But the point is I think he's taking a step forward, and it's pretty notable. The fact that they put up 21 on the Eagles' defense, the fact that they're 2-2 now, I don't want to say it's like Lamar Jackson's development from year 1 to year 2, but I think it's in discussion of being there at some point soon because I think he looks a lot better. Quarterback rating of 84.3 this week. Threw for 174 yards. He's giving them the chance to win, and I love the fact that the Jags actually got him weapons. Christian Kirk, Travis Etienne, James Robinson. Those are 3 really good players right there on that offense. So I'm excited about the Jags. I love that they didn't beat you guys, but they gave you guys a bit of a run for your money. So I'm just proud of the Jags. I love them going out there and doing this, but the Eagles, probably the best team in football right now. We're up there with them.
You know what? I love to hear that. I really do. Because it's not often they get to really say, my team's the best team in football. And that's what
you guys did win the Super Bowl a few years ago. But
hey,
to be fair.
What? It was about 5 years ago, but I could act like it's yesterday. I'm totally fine with that.
Anyway?
Exactly. Look, Miami hasn't won since God knows when. Since the perfect season. Jesus.
Actually, the year after that, but...
to hell with you.
He
says to hell with you.
But I was gonna say, I'm surprised that you didn't like Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. He was one of the only players that had such a high rating coming into the draft. He was compared to Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning based on the ratings he had been given from the draft process. Yeah. He was one of the only players that had ever been able to even reach those heights, and I think we're really starting to get to see that talent finally starting to come through. I do agree with you. Urban Meyer was a complete shit show. And to be honest with you, as someone who got to watch a lot of Doug Peterson's coaching, Trevor Lawrence should be very happy with the coach that they acquired for him.
No doubt.
This is the perfect coach to have for a young quarterback who's learning to develop, learning to use an easier scheme to get truly acclimated to the NFL, and not only get acclimated to the NFL, but to become a successful quarterback. We've seen Doug Peterson be a very, very successful head coach in the league with Philadelphia, had won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia. He brings a lot to the table, and I really think Doug Peterson's going to expedite Trevor Lawrence's development process and really make him blossom by the end of the year.
I think the Jaguars, I think we should talk about them a little more, how they are probably going to win this division, and you're going to see this team bounce from being the worst team in the league to now being a playoff team.
Yeah.
Right now, they currently sit at plus 38 in run differential, which is the only team in their division that has a plus run differential. Everybody else is way below it. And I think they are much better than any other team in their division. Their defense, I think, should be noted as well as something that should... It's a top-tier defense, I think. The fact that you're shutting down the Eagles to only 29 points, yeah, they ran a lot, but Jalen Hurts only had 204 and no throwing touchdowns and not much rushing. They in each game, they've played... It's all been competitive. It's all been very competitive. I think they are a team that should be a little feared to other teams, and they should have some more respect on their name. Even after this loss, it was tough win conditions. If Trevor Lawrence didn't turn the ball over 5 times in one game...
Yeah, fumbling 4 times doesn't make your day easy.
This wouldn't even be... It would be a 1-score game instead of a 9-point game. So
actually, it was an 8-point game. So technically, it was a 1-score
Oh, they had 21. Game. Okay, yeah. All right, so...
Real quick, though, people shouldn't trust my quarterback scouting knowledge because I did think Zach Wilson was far better than Trevor Lawrence, and clearly that's, well, at least for now, not really the case.
You know what? We'll see how good Zach Wilson can become. You know, he really does have to fill in the shoes of Izzy Elite Joe Flacco after he put up a almost league leading 900 yards through the first 3 weeks of the season. So you know that's some production that can be made up. But how are you going to be able to make up that production and then add more value? I think that's something that's going to be interesting to see Zach Wilson do over time. So now let's move to the second game on our slate. We're going to talk about the Ravens versus the Bills, a very, very exciting game for this week. And Goodman, you know, I'd like you to start this off because I know you have something to say.
Yeah, I would say I don't want to talk about it, but I have to talk about it. So here we go. I mean, they blew another lead, right? Like that's the biggest thing I can say about this. They had 20 points going into the second half, and they ended the game with 20 points, and that's the second time they've done that this year, but they've blown a 3-score lead. I mean, it was 20-3 at one point. That's a 17-point game, and they did it again. They blew it. They blew it against the Dolphins. They've now blown it against the Bills. I don't know what the hell's going on in the coaching room right now. Like, you've got Greg Roman, who's always been one of the worst OCs in football, despite leading the Ravens to best offense in football in 2019. But after that, 2020 was bad, 2021 was bad, 2022 not off to a great start. Lamar Jackson carries that man. I'm going to say that right now. Lamar Jackson carries Greg Roman.
He saves his job.
He saves his job. And when Lamar Jackson has a bad game like he did against the Buffalo Bills where he throws for 144 yards, he threw an interception, quarterback rating of 63, the Ravens lose because Greg Roman cannot get the Ravens offense back into any kind of rhythm if Lamar Jackson isn't being MVP Lamar Jackson. If Lamar Jackson plays like Trevor Lawrence does, then the Ravens are in a really bad spot. And they ended up not being able to score a single point in the second half. That's inexcusable. And John Harbaugh needs to take some accountability. He has not at all put any of this on himself, and I think it's time for that to end. You can't blow 2 3-score leads within basically 2 weeks of each other and not say there's a problem here. There's a huge problem here. The Ravens defense, they're 32nd in passing defense right now. They've given up more yards than any other team in the air.
Now, isn't their defense pretty banged up still? Or what's the health looking like? Because I remember last year they lost Peters, they lost Humphrey. Yeah. I mean...
Peters and Humphrey are
what's
both.
It looking like?
Peters and Humphrey are both the starting corners right now, and they've played fantastic. They've been the best, maybe the brightest spots on the team, outside of guys like Marcus Williams and Lamar Jackson. They played really well, but the depth behind them. Brandon Stevens is the number 3, 4th-round pick in 2021, who has been mostly playing safety his whole career, and he's cornerback number 3 right now. So that should tell you something about the depth they have. And last week against the New England Patriots, the starting cornerbacks were 2 rookies. So it's been a little bit rough as far as what the Ravens have been able to throw out there defensively, just because they've been really injured.
No, I mean, that's very interesting. Don't get me wrong. I mean, something that we also should account for is the fact that, the Bills do have the best defense in the league. At least last year they did.
They did.
They still have a top-ranked defense, and I think that's something important to, not discount. The Bills are a real deal team. Everyone knows the Bills are a real deal team. And I don't want to discount your Ravens here, but to be honest with you, I think the Bills are just more talented at every single position on that football field. There's not a position besides kicker that you can tell me the Ravens have an advantage in.
I'd probably take J.K. Dobbins over Devin Singletary.
You know what? Fair enough.
I'll take
but
that.
That's JK
and
coming
tight end. But after that,
and tight end with Knox and
Fine.
then after that,
yes.
But comparatively, there is a kind of wide talent gap here. A surprisingly wide talent gap between two of what I would consider probably two top 10 teams.
Yeah.
And I think that's something interesting to look at. It's just the Bills they're built different because, Josh Allen's a whole beast in himself. I mean, I really think that they're going to be a special team. They're going to go far in the playoffs, and they have something going. Especially being underdogs last year, their entire defense got discounted last year, and that was horrendous. That should never have happened. The fact that not a single one of them got a Pro Bowl honor was a shame. A shame to the NFL, a shame to the stupid-ass voting system they do for the Pro Bowl that should never happen, and a shame to the Pro Bowl that is no more.
I can tell you who's not winning Coach of the Year, Greg Roman. Or John Harbaugh, for that matter.
Hey, you know what? MCDC might really win. My preseason pick's looking pretty nice right now. But to stay on the Ravens, I mean, look, they did have J.K. Dobbins come back this week, who actually looked pretty healthy and actually, started to do some things, caught a couple passes, had a touchdown. The fact that they're able to work him back into the system and he's actually finally healthy now is going to be a huge thing for them, a huge thing in the run game, because that adds another weapon that really can diversify that offense. And I think that's kind of where they lack. They lack in that diversification of their offensive ability, because you see it's either just Lamar running, and that's how it's been the past couple weeks, and he's only throwing it to Mark Andrews mainly with, maybe a handful of passes to either Bateman or Duvernay. It's kind of split between the two. But to be honest with you, I really think that adding this running back in J.K. Dobbins and soon Gus Edwards, I think that's going to be a huge bump to the offense and really help them going forward.
Yeah, real quick. Huge credit to the Bills. They shut down Mark Andrews. 2 receptions, 15 yards. Key point.
So that's where I was going to get at, and you just touched on it. So I watched the Dolphins play the Bills the week before, and now I watched you guys. I pretty much watched the whole game. And the big difference between the Dolphins and the Ravens against the Bills specifically was the weapons. Because in the first half, when you guys scored your first 20 points, I'd have to give credit to the defense more than the offense. The defense was getting takeaways, giving you guys good field position to get easy touchdowns. The quick shovel pass to Dobbins and the easy run-in by Dobbins as well were very easy plays to get the score and get up early. And then after that is where you needed your weapons to step up, your skill players to make plays, and there weren't really any down. Once you shut down Mark Andrews, as you said, there's really nobody else to step up. Bateman got hurt during the middle of the game, and that kind of slowed their offense down. And so after that, that's when the Bills can then beat you with the defense and then beat you over the top with the offense.
Yeah, I mean, when you take away your only playmaker that's not named Lamar Jackson on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, it's going to make it difficult to do anything. Mark Andrews really does open up that offense for literally the entire cast over there. I mean, without Mark Andrews, I don't think Rashad Bateman's a top receiver. I don't think Devin Duvernay's having the season he's having. And I don't think Lamar Jackson's even on the same planet. I don't even think, if Mark Andrews wasn't on this team, I don't even think we're talking about Lamar Jackson as being a possible MVP candidate at the end of this year.
That's fair.
I really think that Mark Andrews makes such a difference on this offense, and especially an offense devoid of talent. It, like Adam said, I think something that's very important to actually see is that the difference in those two Bills games is really the weapons. I mean, having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, that's so dynamic, and it really opens up the offense in such a different way than Mark Andrews is able to. But not just having one playmaker, but having two playmakers really has helped them along the way. It sucks to say, but I really do think that if the Ravens had gone out and picked up Jarvis Landry, they would have been so much better off this season and really much more well-equipped to handle games like this that are going to happen and going to come down to playoff time. And these are the games that you're going to have to win come December, come February.
No doubt.
That's going to bite them in the butt, not signing another wide receiver this offseason.
100%.
I mean, Devin Duvernay, to his credit, has been really good. I mean, he scored a lot of touchdowns very early. I mean, he already has 4, including one that was a kickoff return for a touchdown. So he's been very good. I have to give him credit.
He has been good, but this is a guy who, before the season wasn't expected to do anything. He was pretty much perceived as a bust around the league. And to be honest with you, if he hadn't put up the season he's having right now, I'm pretty sure by the end of the year he'd be cut.
It's possible. I mean, he was a third-round pick, and the Ravens do love to give them, like, for example, Tyus Bowser, one of the top pass rushers on this team, was, I believe, a second-round pick about 5+ years ago. And
really?
for about the first 3 years of his career, did absolutely nothing. And they kept him on the team. They kept waiting, and now he's become one of the top pass rushers on the team. So they do love to give guys a long run before they cut them. I will say that.
Fair enough. I mean, look, to be honest with you, I've watched my fair share of really shitty receivers being an Eagles fan. So
Jalen
Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, we've had a hard time drafting in the past, and I think I know when a guy's cooked when he's cooked. And to be honest with you, I think Devin Duvernay is having a great season, but I think he's a cooked receiver. I don't think you're going to get much out of him for the rest of the season. I don't think he's going to be a huge part of the offense that can really contribute in ways that you'd need a playmaker to. So, it's time to move on to our third game here. We're going to talk about the Dolphins versus the Bengals. And I know this was a Thursday night game, but we can't forget it. So I'm going to let Adam start off with this one. You got anything to say?
Yeah, I feel like a lot happened during this game. Obviously, the Tua part of it. But seeing Teddy Bridgewater have to step up and play, and as well as the Bengals' offensive line finally stepping up, and I watched them through the whole game. Their O-line is now, figured out. They're going to protect Joe Burrow a lot better. They're going to get their run game started. And they did a very good job against the top defense in Miami. So, what I really have to say is about Tua, and I think if he were to stay that whole game, I think we would have had a much better chance to win that game. When he did play, he was doing a very good job game managing it in the first half of the game, as you should, and as he likes to, being very accurate with his throws. Once he steps out, you have to throw in a quarterback on a short week to try to save your game when you're going up against the Bengals, who were the AFC champions last year. So even going to the game, I wasn't very confident because we had a very hard-fought game against the Bills. But then once halftime hit, you kind of realized the Dolphins were defeated, and the Bills took advantage of it. And the Bengals.
No, but I mean, losing to it really is a big blow to your team, and it really did seem like they were so concerned about him they almost forgot about the game a little bit. Mm. And to be honest with you, I don't blame them. I more or less have a hard time believing that anyone in that facility would let a guy who's been in the league for, 2 years at this point?
Yeah, it's his third.
Okay. A guy who's been in the league for 3 years and really has been a long-term investment for them, as seen by their first year where he pretty much didn't play a single game. I mean, you're gonna turn around on a short week after this man pretty much looked unbelievably concussed. Like, as someone who's played football in the past, when you see a concussion, you know a concussion. That man was so concussed.
I want to defend Tua a little bit because he does then step out of the game after that, after he got hit by the Bills, and he comes back after halftime and leads them to a game-winning to win the game. So over that break, you think and look at it and say, if he's able to do this, I don't know what the protocols they did. Nobody does, I assume. But if he was able to get out there and play, I don't blame Tua for not going out there. It's not his fault. I don't know whose fault to blame.
Oh, no, I wouldn't put this on Tua, but I would put this more on the medical staff, more on the Dolphins organization as a whole. I mean, this is a guy that you went out there, acquired a big first-round pick to go up high and take him. I mean, what was he? He was a top 5 pick.
He was 5th, yeah.
So, I mean, this is a guy you put a lot of money into, a lot of time and investment, and you're just going to throw it all away for a random Thursday night game that you probably would have been better prepared to have Teddy Bridgewater start. I just, from an organizational standpoint, I have a hard time standing by the Dolphins organization and going, was this really a smart play whatsoever for your supposedly star quarterback or hopeful star quarterback? I just think it was a very interesting decision especially on a short-term week.
The short-term week definitely hurt us, and that's what, I knew we were going to pretty much lose this game just because of that short week. The whole team was banged up and exhausted after 3 long weeks of hard-fought football, and the Bengals coming off kicking the Jets' ass, so nothing new about there. But for the most part, I'm still not upset with the team. I think we're still a top team. There's not really much else to take from this game other than the Tua injury. So we have the Jets next week, so there's really not much else to say. Everybody else looked good. Tyreek had 160 yards.
Well, I was going to say something big that we saw pop up this week, and definitely a shift in the in the carries and in the playtime in general. We really got to see Raheem Mostert take the lead in that backfield with 15 carries compared to Chase Edmonds' 5. I mean, this has been something that we had we had heard about in the beginning of the season is, who's going to start? Is it going to be Raheem Mostert when he comes back healthy, a guy who's been proven and dominant? Or are we going to get Chase Edmonds to be the full-time starter, a guy who's never really had this full-time role, this bell cow back ability? And we're kind of going to get to see that play out now as, it's very clear that Mostert is the number one running back in that backfield. And he's really going to be the guy who's not only going to supply you value on your team and in your bets, but is definitely going to help out all year fantasy football-wise, especially compared to Chase Edmonds.
Mostert has been the first and second down back throughout the whole year so far. He's been getting the majority of the carries every game. Chase Edmonds is that speed guy you want to have on third downs, third and long. You can get a quick screen pass or a quick out pass to who's going to make a play downfield. That's how they've used him for, and I think it's a perfect split time between them. I think they figured it out, like each other's roles, and I feel like that's a big part. When you know each other's roles, you're going to exceed at what you have to do. So this team is very complete, and I'm very happy with the direction that we're going in. So even after a loss like this, there's not much to hang your head on about. You could still look forward and be pretty happy with this team.
And to be 100% honest with you, I really don't see a massive downgrade from Tua Tagovailoa to Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, to be honest with you, they're very similar quarterbacks, don't have the best of arm strength, but are, they're based on their accuracy. That's really where the big point of these two quarterbacks is. They're all about accuracy. They're both very similar quarterbacks. I have a hard time seeing how Teddy doesn't step in here and almost be a 1-for-1 for Tua.
And you're getting the experience from Teddy. You're getting a guy who's been around for a while. Former star in Minnesota before the big knee injury, and a guy that really has, I think, a lot of untapped potential. He's older now. He's kind of like a grizzly vet at this point, but I think he can lead the Dolphins for a few weeks till Tua's back. I wouldn't worry about it that much. I told him that when we were watching the game. It's not that big of a drop-off. It is one for sure. I mean, Tua threw 6 touchdowns the other day against the Ravens, so it's a drop-off.
Nick Foles threw 6 touchdowns. He threw 7 touchdowns at one point in his career. God knows that he wasn't that great all the time.
Hey, no, and that's another Grizzly vet who just led the team to a Super Bowl win. Yeah. So, hey, you never know what Teddy might be able to do for you guys.
I think Tua and Teddy's floors are very similar. You're going to get the same average production out of them. I think Tua's ceiling is obviously much higher, being still young, and I think an overall better quarterback as of right. I mean, tough to say compare each other's games, but yeah, I think the ceiling's a little higher for Tua. And once he comes back, I think we're going to be a much even better team over these next maybe couple weeks when Teddy plays.
It's fair.
Well, I guess we'll see how good Teddy Two Gloves plays over these next couple weeks. All right, so now we're going to get into the last part of the show. We're going to talk about some of these divisions and the standings in the NFL. We're 4 weeks in just to kind of get an idea of what's going on, where these teams are going, and the possibilities they have ahead. I think it's really interesting to kind of take this picture, this snapshot now of the league, get an idea so we can go, look 4 weeks later and go, hey, did this league stay the same? Did the Eagles go from 4-0 to 4-4, or did they become an 8-0 team? And, I think it's interesting to kind of get a quick little snapshot. So the one thing I definitely want to talk about was the NFC East, or the NFC Beast. I mean, this division is surprisingly, unbelievably good, and it makes no sense. The Cowboys don't have Dak Prescott. They're sitting there with Cooper Kush. I mean, the guy's killing it. He's killing it.
He's leading them to wins. And if you're a winning quarterback as a backup, that's all they ask for from you. I think he's playing really well like that, with no expectations.
No, yeah, he's balling. And you know what? He's doing the one thing that Jerry Jones wants him to do. Start a quarterback controversy, baby. Oh, yeah.
Nothing Jerry Jones would love more.
That's what I'm saying. And you know what? It's very interesting to also see the Giants with their triple option system really be a successful team this year. I mean, I know the competition level against the teams that the NFC East has played, not necessarily the greatest. It's been a little lackluster, but the fact that these teams are still 3-1 and 4-0 really shows that they've taken they're taking their time, and they're taking the ability to win the easy games. That's what good teams do. They win the easy games, and they're showing why they're a good team and that this might be the most competitive division in the NFC. So, I think that's just an interesting thing to look at. We could also talk about the NFC West, where we have every single team locked at 2-2. Surprisingly, the Seahawks are in there. I never thought Geno Smith would be nearly as good as he is, but you know what? Geno Smith is balling, baby. He's balling, baby.
It's actually insane. He's the most accurate quarterback so far through this season. That blew my mind, but yeah.
I saw a stat today. It was like if he threw 39 balls right into the ground, he'd still have a better QBR overall than Russell Wilson. Which, you know what, for a guy they just paid like $280-something million, that's pretty sad, ain't it?
Russell Wilson, man, I don't want to segue here to the Broncos, but I'm going to do it for a second.
It.
I watched that game the other night. I think it was last Sunday night. I may be wrong in that, but it was the Broncos game where they scored barely any points at all, and they won by like 1 point. It was 11
against
the
Niners?
Something. Yeah, against the Niners. Russell Wilson and that entire offense. First of all, Nathaniel Hackett, I could outcoach that guy. I've never coached a team in my life, and I know for a fact that I could outcoach Nathaniel Hackett.
I think the sad thing is that us three idiots could outcoach him. I think he's a bigger idiot than all three of us, and we're on the Idiots Football Show.
Look,
it's quite impressive.
He runs a high school offense. They just go under center with the most basic vanilla formations you've ever seen and just run and pass the ball like it's a high school team. And I hate it for Russell Wilson because I love that guy. I want to see that guy excel. And he's locked in that system with Nathaniel Hackett as his head coach, and I hate it. Anyway.
No. Actually, I want to stay on this topic because I think it's an interesting thing because the Broncos have definitely they're definitely one of the most interesting teams in the league right now. Yeah. They acquired so much this offseason. They were really expected to be one of the favorites, especially in their own division. But meanwhile, they're just having a hard time getting anything up and going. And I don't even see how they're going to be able to compete with the Chargers or the Chiefs. I have a hard time understanding how they're going to be able to do that, especially, they just lost against the Raiders, who was 0-3 before this. And to be honest with you, I don't get it. I think Russell Wilson I think he's kind of a shell of his former self. I mean, he's 33 years old. And the thing that with Russell Wilson that people haven't talked about is that this is how he's played for the last year and a half.
Yeah.
It's not like he's played well. We're watching Geno Smith, who just stepped into the same offense, played just as good, if not better, than the way Russell Wilson has played over the past year and a half. I think that's a huge issue, something that's been completely overlooked by just about every organization, every person, and I don't blame anybody. But the fact of the matter is the fact that I haven't seen Russell Wilson complete a single intermediate pass, and that alone is going to kill the Denver Broncos offense.
Every completion is 5 yards.
It's either 5 yards or it's 1,000,000 yards.
Yeah.
Like, I love the moon balls. I think that's a great thing, and Russell Wilson excels at throwing those moon balls. But I have a big issue when you just cannot move the ball effectively down the field without massive chunk plays all the time. If that's the only way you're moving the ball is massive chunk plays, it's not even worth it. I mean, I know they just lost Javonte Williams this week too, but...
Huge hit.
I think it'd be a bigger hit if Javonte was actually the bell cow. If they actually said, you know what, let's give the ball to Javonte. Now they're going to have this weird running back tandem between Latavius Murray, Melvin Gordon, and Mike Boone.
Mike Boone!
But, I think it's going to be a very interesting just running back combo. To be honest with you, I think the person that we're going to see get the most work out of this this backfield is actually going to be Latavius Murray, a guy who has stepped into offenses, similar situations, and honestly has performed exceedingly well.
You were breaking that news to me. I saw him on the Saints last week, and I did not know that he had gotten signed off the practice squad. That's pretty interesting.
Did you look at that?
Former Raven, by the way. Raven legend.
Raven legend.
Hey, man, he knows how to get it done. He's a great player and really can add a lot of value to this Broncos offense. It's going to be good to get another guy in the mix, and I know you can't replace Javonte Williams with Latavius Murray. Jesus, all those names. Getting all crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think this Denver team has a lot of potential to go, but with the current situation, if they keep playing the same way they have, I think they're going to be destined to be, I want to say a bottom 5 team. I don't even think be average.
They were impossible to watch.
I think they might be a bottom 5 team. They are the least entertaining football team to watch. And I have had a hard time saying any football this year has been unentertaining.
Yeah.
It's been some of the most hard-fought games I have watched since I was a child. I really think that this is one of the most exciting NFL seasons we've had in years.
It's hilarious to me that they've scored 66 and given up 68, the Broncos. 66, I would think, is the lowest number. Actually, the Colts have scored less.
You know what? And they're another team that's just
And the Bears,
sad.
because Justin Fields.
That's right. The worst quarterback in the league.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I mean, look, there are a lot of other disappointing teams. I mean, obviously the Bears have been a disappointment for a long time, and it doesn't seem like they're trying to change that anytime soon. And the Colts, I think the Colts are in the same boat as the Bears. It doesn't seem like they're trying to... Yeah, are they trying to patch this quarterback position every year? Yeah, but has that ever worked? No. This is the 3rd straight year with a brand new quarterback? How do you want any of these guys to build chemistry with your quarterback?
Impossible.
The most important guy on the entire field. How are we supposed to, get coordinated with him and really be the most effective players possible if it's just a carousel at the quarterback room.
Yeah,
it makes it very difficult.
I feel like the Colts were like this last year. I can't exactly remember, but the first 4 games they looked awful. Wentz was turning the ball over way too much, and it wasn't very exciting. But the Colts, they looked inept almost. That O-line is a shell of its former self over the past 2 years. Jonathan Taylor hasn't been getting anything to go for him, and that's what's really hurt them.
Well, it really hurts when they have no ability to pass the ball. I mean, Matt Ryan looks like a shell of himself. He looks like a rookie more than anybody else in that field, and it's bad.
Yeah.
He has been unbelievably
mental
ineffective.
mistakes, which is kind of uncommon for him.
You know what? He's a 37-year-old guy. You know, maybe he's starting to get a little bit of onset dementia. You never know. It's going to be a little interesting.
CTE's really kicking in now.
CTE is real.
It is goddamn real.
That's all I gotta say.
If Antonio Brown has taught us anything.
If he's taught us anything, we know. CTE is real. Well, let's call it. To all you fellow idiots out there, I'd really like to say thank you for joining the podcast for episode number 5. I'd like to thank idiot number 2 on my right, Adam.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Idiot number 3 on my left, Goodman.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And idiot number 1 in the middle, I'd like to thank you for coming out. Have a great day.